Hello. Thank you for tuning back into Mo's Minute on Location. And today we are visiting the man of the hour, Larry King himself. Now, the reason I wanted to do this segment was because I loved Larry King. I was 13 when my mom started letting me stay up late on the weekends. I learned very quickly that I don't really like Saturday Night Live. Blasphemy, I know, but the original cast was so much better. So I started watching Larry King. I was 13 watching Larry King, and he was amazing. I saw so many great interviews. Christopher Reeve, God, that was fabulous. Jeffrey Dahmer's parents, that was something. Elizabeth Smart, the day she was kidnapped, that was something. Bob Hope's daughter, won't forget that one either. The Columbine High School class of 2002 on their graduation, because they were the last class that was there the day of the shooting. He was something else. So I have a personal vested interest in this because Larry King basically defined my adolescence. Anyway, so Larry King was born on November 19th, 1933 in Brooklyn, New York, and he was born Lawrence Zweiger. His parents were Jewish immigrants from Belarus. His mom was a garment worker, and his dad was a restaurant owner, but he also worked in a defense plant. But his dad died when he was young. He was only 9. And so he had to go to work at a young age to help support the family. They were having trouble making ends meet. That wasn't bad for him. He wasn't really one for school. So, and he already knew he wanted a career in broadcasting. So he went to work. And in the 1950s, shortly after he graduated from high school, he moved to Florida. Florida was like the up and coming spot for broadcasting at the time. So he got this job at a radio station, and he started out just doing like menial tasks. But then one day an announcer suddenly quit, and his boss was like, "Hey, you, Larry, get up there." And that was his first broadcast. It was like 1955 or 1957. And that was pretty much it. It was not long after that, the general manager of this station told him to change his name. Zweiger was a little bit of a mouthful. So Larry chose the name King from a print ad for a liquor store. And by 1960, he had completely changed his name to Larry King. He also started doing interviews at a restaurant. So he'd sit in this restaurant and he interviewed the waiters and the chefs and anyone who walked in. And one day, Bobby Darin just came in for lunch. And Bobby Darin ended up being Larry King's first celebrity interview. And then Jackie Gleason was doing like a nighttime, or maybe it was like not reality TV, but like some kind of like a TV variety show at the time. And he became kind of a mentor. He just ended up like hanging out with Larry King at night. And they would... he gave Larry like a bunch of advice, and they would change sets and stuff, and Jackie Gleason became a mentor. And then, he started doing like sports broadcasting for the Miami Dolphins, but he got fired after he got arrested for grand larceny. The charges were dropped, and he ended up getting the job back later, but he was fired for a short time. And then he got a job, and this would have been, I believe, 1978. He got a job with the Mutual Broadcasting System, doing a nighttime show, and this was like an all-night thing. So for the first hour, he would interview somebody. And then for the next hour, people could call in and ask the guy from the first hour questions. And then for the rest of the night, people could just call in and talk to Larry. And it was like a hangout with Larry session. But by 1993, he was a little tired of the all-night thing, and so he asked for a shorter program. And then he retired from that program in 1994. They kept airing his segments after, of course, because he's Larry King, but he did retire in 1994. But let's backtrack a bit. In 1985, he started Larry King Live on CNN. So he would do Larry King Live in New York for an hour and then fly to Miami and do the Larry King show on MBS for the rest of the night. It got pretty draining, which is probably why he retired from that one in 1994. But he kept going on CNN until 2010. His last words on his final radio broadcast, or not radio, it was TV at this point, duh. But his last words on his TV broadcast were, instead of goodbye, how about so long? And he said, like, yeah, I'm not going to do this program anymore, but I will come back, I will do specials. And so he continued to host various CNN specials until 2012. And then everyone probably remembers the interview he did with Danny Puggy. I was just introduced to this last night, but one may remember in the interview that he told Danny Puggy that he should get a private plane as like a luxury purchase. Makes sense considering the man would fly from New York to Florida basically every night to do shows. So he did over 60,000 interviews in his career. He interviewed every sitting president since Gerald Ford, Muhammad Ali, Lady Gaga, Jerry Springer, Frank Sinatra, Jerry Seinfeld, that was something. The Obamas, well, I did say every sitting president since Ford. Yeah, the Obamas, I mentioned a few others earlier, the Beatles, Marlon Brando, who kissed him at the end, that's awkward. Elizabeth Taylor, everybody. I can't think of a single person who was relative at the time who did not do an interview with Larry King. And so that was his career. And so, of course, like, there's some drama in there. There's that arrest for grand larceny. He probably wouldn't mind erasing from his record. And the newspaper column he did for like 30 years for USA Today. But his personal life was no less dramatic. He was actually married 8 times to 7 different women. And he had 5 children, although his oldest, Larry King Jr., he didn't meet until Larry King Jr. was in his 30s. And he kept working through it all. He was always working. He had a slew of health problems. He had lung cancer. He had a stroke. He had heart issues. But he kept working. And in 2021, he was hospitalized with COVID. And although he survived COVID, he did, it kind of, I guess it probably like weakened his immune system. And he ended up catching another infection while he was still in Cedars-Sinai Hospital recovering from COVID. And he died of sepsis. And that was January 23rd, 2021. And he was 87 years old. But even though Larry King is no longer with us, the 60,000 interviews that he did in his career will be with us forever. So, rest in peace to the man who defined my adolescence. Thank you.